and welcome to Inside Edition to discuss national, regional and international issues in depth. In today's episode, we will be speaking about the developments of human rights protection in the Kingdom of Bahrain and the role the National Institution for Human Rights plays in this regard. The tasks of the NIHR focus on the promotion, development and protection of human rights, in addition to consolidating the relevant values and awarenesses of such values, and ensuring that these values are practiced freely and independently in line with the Paris Principles endorsed by the General Assembly of the United Nations in its resolution number 48-134 for the year 1993, which form the legal reference in the establishment of the institution as a set of internationally recognized principles concerning the formation of national institutions for human rights, the powers entrusted to them, and the procedures governing their work. We will be discussing this matter with Dr. Khalifa Al-Fadl, the Secretary General of the National Institution for Human Rights. But first, this for more.
The idea of human rights is that each one of us, no matter who we are or where we are born, is entitled to the same basic rights and freedoms. Human rights are not privileges, and they cannot be granted or revoked. They are inalienable and universal. That may sound straightforward enough, but it gets incredibly complicated as soon as anyone tries to put the idea into practice. What exactly are the basic human rights? Who gets to pick them? Who enforces them, and how? The history behind the concept of human rights is a long one. Throughout the centuries and across societies, religions, and cultures, we have struggled with defining notions of rightfulness, justice, and rights. But one of the most modern affirmations of universal human rights emerged from the ruins of World War II with the creation of the United Nations. The treaty that established the UN gives as one of its purposes to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights. And with the same spirit, in 1948, the UN General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document, written by an international committee chaired by Eleanor Roosevelt, lays the basis for modern international human rights law. The Declaration is based on the principle that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. It lists 30 articles recognizing, among other things, the principle of non-discrimination and the right to life and liberty. It refers to negative freedoms, like the freedom from torture or slavery, as well as positive freedoms, such as the freedom of movement and residence. It encompasses basic civil and political rights, such as freedom of expression, religion, or peaceful assembly, as well as social, economic, and cultural rights, such as the right to education and the right to freely choose one's occupation and be paid and treated fairly. The Declaration takes no sides as to which rights are more important, insisting on their universality, indivisibility, and interdependence.
Welcome back. Joining us in the studio is Dr. Khalifa Al-Fadl. Hello, Dr. Khalifa. Thank you very much for being with us again for the second time, third season. We know that a lot has changed since the last time we did the show together, but one thing that we would like you to comment on is basically the establishment of the National Institute for Human Rights came as a response with the progress and development of the kingdom. So tell us more about the NIHR's vision and scope of work and the structure it has.
Well, first of all, on behalf of the National Institution for Human Rights in the Kingdom of Bahrain, I would like to thank the Ministry of Information Affairs and Bahrain TV for having us today in this very progressive program. Indeed, the National Institution for Human Rights is one of the most effective national mechanisms in human rights oversight in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Its legal framework, actually, our institution was established in 2009 by a royal order, and then a legislation was enacted on the establishment of the National Institution for Human Rights in 2014 and was further amended in 2016. Of course, our institution has been established in line with Paris Principles, which you had referenced in the introduction of this program.
Yes.
And it is fully independent and, in terms of legislation at least, provided all the guarantees for an independent human rights oversight body. That is, of course, complemented by the practice of the Council of Commissioners and the Secretariat in order to provide an effective national mechanism.
Yeah.
I would like to also affirm here as well that the Kingdom of Bahrain has 5 national mechanisms. There's the National Institution for Human Rights, there's the Ombudsman, there's the National Security Agency Ombudsman as well, in addition to the SIU Special Investigation Unit and the PDRC, which is the Prisoner and Detainees Rights Commission. Of course, it is very important that we realize that it's very important for any individual who has any grievances to exhaust the national mechanism before reaching out to the regional and international mechanisms. And that indeed has been successful with regard to the National Institution for Human Rights and its very wide mandate that covers all fundamental rights and freedoms not only afforded in our national constitution, in our national legislation, but also in international human rights benchmarks on which the Kingdom of Bahrain has ratified, and binding declarations not limited to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Yes.
Having said that, of course, there has been a lot of milestones that have been achieved. The National Institution for Human Rights, for instance, compared to 2015, had only just a number of complaints and legal assistance requests, around 88. In 2016, the number became 137. However, in 2017, it became 484. Okay. That's because of a successful engagement campaign that the Secretariat of the institution has taken into account, and the launching of our first toll-free hotline, 800-1144, in addition to a phone app to receiving complaints and other channels on receiving complaints that have been enacted by the Secretariat of the institution.
Yes. Over the years, this growing number of basically complaints, or you could also say call-ins that you are getting, is because of the successful communication methods and ways that people have now and are available to them. Also, a very important thing that you've indicated just a minute ago is that the legislative branch of the government played a very huge role in this, and it's actually a pivotal role, and it gives full priority to support the National Institutes for Human Rights performance. What can you tell us about this support and how it facilitates achieving the aspired goals of the institution?
Well, our institution works very closely with the parliamentary select committees on human rights in the Shura Council and the House and the Council of Representatives. Of course, each legislation in the Kingdom of Bahrain regarding human rights, according to our law, the legislative branch provides us with opinion requests.
Okay.
And in most cases, our opinion was reflected in the legislative amendments regarding any law or any legislation that affects human rights. And that, of course, reaffirms the role of the institution and the legislative powers afforded to the institution in order to provide a difference, if you like, in the whole human rights situation in the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Yes.
We welcome the cooperation with the legislative authority, and by law, annually, we submit our annual report to the speakers of both houses.
Yes. Dr. Al-Fadl, one very important part is that the National Institute of Human Rights here in Bahrain does deal with the local human rights violations, but in cooperation with also internationally with other countries, basically because of the big workforce that we have here. What can you tell us about what's been done for the labor market in the regard of protecting their human rights?
Well, we've worked closely with the LMRA, and I've worked personally with Mr. Osama Al-Absi, who was very supportive to the National Institution for Human Rights. As a result, last year, in the end of May, we have opened a branch dedicated to the expatriate workers in the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Yes.
Of course, it was the first of its kind in the region. We have dedicated staff there and provided with all relevant languages. We look forward to expand our database as well to include even further languages. But nonetheless, it has been established in Sihle, in the human trafficking, the National Human Trafficking Committee in Sihle,
Yeah.
And I believe that that was one of the first initiatives that we've done with the new administration, the National Institution for Human Rights, and indeed has been reflected in our complaints mechanism and even in our training.
Yes. The initiatives are another very important part about why we wanted to talk today and clarify a lot of things. The NIHR is committed to strengthening its capabilities in human rights field in order to maintain and provide effective services. What are the initiatives that have been taken and that are coming up and training courses that are launched by the institution in this regard?
Oh, this is quite interesting. It's one of the most things that we like to discuss actually regarding our institution. In the first half of 2018, we successfully trained 1,308 individuals, compared to a little more than 200 last year.
Yes.
Of course, this has been a very big priority for the institution because human rights awareness is a very fundamental and instrumental in the protection and promotion of fundamental rights and freedoms in the Kingdom of Bahrain, or anywhere actually. So we have successfully trained 1,308 individuals. They came from different backgrounds: academics, postgraduate students, school pupils, law enforcement officers, and we have designed a customized program with the National Security Agency, where this year, 2018, we aim to train a total of 160 of their personnel. And we've been working closely with the NSA Ombudsman on this, and indeed it was a unique program that we've designed, and hopefully which will continue in the foreseeable future. We have also had a conference which was the first of its kind in the GCC region that focused on the idea of business and human rights, where the private sector needs to be accountable to any alleged human rights violations, given that Bahrain is nonetheless a very progressive business and financial center in the region. That's one of the issues that we've taken into account, and indeed has been reflected in some practices that we have been monitoring in the few months that have passed.
Yeah.
If I may add, there's a 95% satisfaction rate with our training programs, where we have conducted surveys to, of course, all the clients or all of those beneficiaries from our training programs, and there's a very impressive 95% satisfaction rate.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That we hopefully look to improve in the foreseeable future.
Hopefully. Now, these initiatives aren't also the only ones. I mean, I know that there are a bunch of them, but very important point is about the families in Bahrain whose family members are part of the other GCC countries, including Qatar, and their rights. What can you tell us about that initiative?
Well, the National Institution for Human Rights welcomes His Majesty's initiative regarding the humanitarian issues regarding to families or mixed families between Bahrain and Qatar.
Yeah.
We highly welcome this initiative by His Majesty, which reflects his humanitarian approach towards these issues. We also like to affirm here, and I take this opportunity to reaffirm, that we have received 0 complaints regarding any allegations of human rights violations regarding the whole diplomatic issue. Yes. Regardless of many reports that we read here and there, I could securely affirm that we have received 0 complaints. We only received 1 case of 27 individuals that have been dismissed unlawfully from Qatar Airways, but nonetheless, now they have been secured, the government secured jobs for them in different sectors. But nonetheless, regarding human rights violations from the issue, we have received 0 complaints, and we are very confident that there has been no human rights situation regarding the whole diplomatic issue.
This is again an indication of the power some social media outlets have, and how confirming information from social media news is important in their actual ways to do that. In performing its duty, the NIHR deals with several official and private institutions also. And as you said, private institutions are also mainly now coming into the radar from the point of view of them following the human rights ethics of the country. But how do you value the cooperation between the NIHR and the private institutions?
Well, first of all, regarding our outreach, of course, regionally at least, The National Institution for Human Rights is an effective member of the Asian Pacific Forum for National Human Rights Institutions. We have been working closely with them. We welcome cooperation with them and the capacity assessment and technical assistance they have provided to our institution, which was very valuable. We have signed agreements with them, and very recently they have funded one of our projects with regard to the documentation of human rights violations and human rights monitoring. With regard to the private sector, well, before that, I need to emphasize that there's 117 national rights institutions around the world that have been established with regard to the Paris Principles. With regard to our cooperation with the private sector, indeed it was very progressive. We welcome the cooperation with many entities in the Kingdom of Bahrain, which focused on the theme of business and human rights, which was our priority in 2018. Our institution is one of the first, well, it is the first institution, regionally at least, to be part of the UN Global Compact initiative. And we urge all the private sector in the Kingdom of Bahrain to sign up to this initiative that affirms many fundamental rights regarding the private sector nonetheless, not limited to the environment, workers' rights, and anti-corruption. Of course, there are many companies, public and private companies nonetheless, in the Kingdom of Bahrain that have had a very productive role in the Global Compact, not limited to GPIC, whom we worked very closely with, and they have provided all necessary assistance to our institution and stand as a role model nonetheless to many companies in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Of course, we focus also on the issue of data protection. And we welcome the legislation, the very recent legislation that has been enacted in that respect. We focused on big data and the right to privacy, workers' rights, and medicine. There are still some ideas that medicine, there should be no copyright on medicine nonetheless. However, we are thinking about this issue, we are researching this issue, and hopefully not only in the Bahraini level but on the regional level, we look forward to have executive steps regarding all of the issues associated with business and human rights as a contemporary human rights theme that needs to be reflected not only in policy but also in practice.
How about governmental institutions when it comes, like, as you said, the healthcare sector and stuff like that? How do they contribute in providing their services and helping out with the NIHR's goals?
Well, the National Institution for Human Rights has outreach with all relevant stakeholders in the Kingdom of Bahrain, not limited to government institutions. However, the health sector nonetheless have been very cooperative with us. We had a number of complaints in that respect, and we had immediate response from the Supreme Council and from other relevant regulatory bodies within the health sector in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Of course, we're working closely with them on these issues, and our annual report will reflect the cooperation of institutions with the National Institution for Human Rights.
Well, the international outreach activity and effective cooperation with regional and global human rights institutions that you've mentioned are pillars of the NIHR's work. What can you tell us about that?
Well, other than the APF, Asian Pacific Forum, and other regional bodies that we have been working with, we look forward to having a positive relationship with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in the foreseeable future. We have been working with projects nonetheless in the past, where there was a capacity assessment program that has been designed for our institution with cooperation between the APF and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Of course, our institution is part of the Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institutions, GANHRI, which we are a part of, and we always look forward to having stronger ties and relations with our counterparts regionally and globally. However, our institution nonetheless has taken a lot of initiatives that has been recognized by regional and international bodies, not limited to being one of the first institutions in the world to be part of the Global Compact initiative, and being the first national human rights institution to be ISO accredited because of its services complaints mechanism services nonetheless that have been verified by third parties.
Yes. On that same point, the global human rights institutions that contribute to the services and to the work of the National Institute of Human Rights, there is also the regional level, on the GCC level. How is the association in that, with the national institution from that perspective, from the other GCC countries?
We have been working with our counterparts, especially the Omani institution, and we always look forward to keep in mind that even our literature, that the GCC Human Rights Declaration is reflected.
Yes.
That is partly because we believe in the idea, well, there is a notion nonetheless in the literature of international law and international human rights law to take into account cultural relativism.
Yes.
Which is very fundamental in the promotion and protection of human rights in the cultural context. Of course, that does not mean that there needs to be an escape from universal values. However, there are some practices need to be interpreted in a cultural context, yes. And that nonetheless is reflected in the GCC Human Rights Declaration and other regional human rights benchmarks.
Perfect. All right, Bahrain spares no efforts to enhance human rights through cooperation with relevant partners at national levels in response to the recommendations regarding Bahrain's third national report on human rights in Geneva. During the 36th meeting of the Human Rights Council, the delegation of the Kingdom of Bahrain stressed the importance of constructive cooperation with the Human Rights Council, noting that the mechanism for the Universal Periodic Review, the UPR, of human rights deserves support in order to achieve its goals. This received wide international recognition of the efforts the Kingdom is exerting.
And I must say that I was impressed by the preparation of your delegation, the fact that they had studied the recommendations made very thoroughly. I believe there were around 175, and an overwhelming majority of these were accepted by the Bahraini delegation, close to 140. So that talks about the intense preparation that was undertaken and the kind of efforts that the government of Bahrain is taking to advance the field of human rights promotion and protection in Bahrain. So I would really like to congratulate the delegation on this excellent performance.
We are very satisfied with the responses provided by your government, the government of Bahrain. We are very happy for the efforts of Bahrain to promote gender equality and guarantee the human place in society in political, economic and social areas. The family law of July 2017 comply with it.
The Maldives is pleased to congratulate Bahrain on the adoption of its third cycle UPR report. And we did give a statement today in support of Bahrain and for the adoption of the UPR of Bahrain. We would like to note that Maldives is very pleased to see that there's a lot of work done by the government of the Kingdom of Bahrain for the advancement of women and to promote equal opportunities for women. Further, we also would like to note that we are pleased to see that the Kingdom of Bahrain is promoting and encouraging tolerance on religious values and also working towards combating hate speech.
Welcome back. Now, we've talked about the initiatives. We've also talked about the cooperations and the Human Rights and Democracy Report for 2017, as we saw on the show, was issued by the British Foreign Office, noted in page 29 that the NIHR has taken steps to ensure that all Bahrainis can report alleged human rights violations and abuses, including through a newly widely advertised hotline and, as you said, also the application. We welcome this development and encourage continued work in this area. How do you value this statement?
Well, our institution nonetheless welcomes the recognition by the FCO, and indeed our hotline is one of the biggest success stories that we have launched in the National Institution for Human Rights. It has been launched on the 27th of August 2017, so its birthday is soon.
Yes.
Its first birthday nonetheless. And since that date, we've seen an increase in complaints and assistance requests in the institution by 350%.
Yes.
And until today, well, until the 30th of July, we have received more than 1,200 calls through that hotline. That is indeed a statistic that we take into account, and indeed we work very closely even with counterparts in order to resolve all of the issues arising from the hotline and the complaints mechanism.
Yes.
The approval rating the client approval rating nonetheless from our whole complaints mechanism, not limited to the toll-free hotline, is 92%.
Yes.
That is indeed impressive, and we have trained our staff on customer service and advanced training in that respect. We are also looking forward very soon to introduce a CMS system, customer management system or client management system that indeed will lead to the improvement of the quality of the hotline mechanism. But however, again, the institution welcomes the recognition by the FCO, and there have been other bodies and NGOs as well that have welcomed the establishment of the hotline. We need to note that it's the first toll-free human rights hotline in the GCC region.
Yes.
And we have seen other states that have followed on this path.
Yes. Doctor, I want to bring this closer to our viewers' attention, have more of an explanatory take on this. Now, this hotline, the increasing number of complaints, does not mean that it is a bad thing. It means that basically the communication has become better with the people in Bahrain that are coming to call. But how is a typical mechanism of someone calling in? What happens after that?
Well, as you said, I totally agree that the rise in numbers does not show that there's, God forbid, a human rights situation nonetheless in the Kingdom of Bahrain. However, in my opinion, it shows that there's more trust and confidence in the National Institution for Human Rights. It shows that our institution is an effective a national mechanism where individuals in the Kingdom of Bahrain take it into account, and in all cases have been resolved.
Yes.
All cases have been resolved, whether it was through the hotline or walk-ins or through other methods of providing complaints and legal assistance.
Yes.
In terms of our procedures, we have recently launched a manual that's public.
Mm-hmm.
So any individual who has any inquiries about our procedure regarding the complaints mechanism could visit our website www.nahr.org.bh, and they could see the manual there, and that indeed is transparent, and we try of course to have best practices internally with our staff to deal with issues within 48 hours or 2 working days.
Yes. And your staff are trained in basically in customer service and in talking to them, and then referring them to the proper sides with the institutions that are working with you guys. So basically a multidisciplinary team of people that are trying to solve this problem together.
Indeed.
Yes.
Of course, within our procedures, there's also a committee that's chaired by our chairperson that deals with the issues on a day-to-day basis. We have a system as well. Mm-hmm. And we have improved the system recently in order to take into consideration all of the issues. Our manual actually, while we were seeing other manuals from other counterpart institutions, did not really address the issues of how to deal with a hotline, how to deal with an app, and that kind of high-tech, if you like, issues.
Yeah.
So we've taken, we have introduced this in our manual, and it's transparent. Each and every individual is more than welcome to see it and to even discuss and to provide suggestions wherever they see appropriate.
Yes. Well, as Dr. Khalifa mentioned, all the information is available on the website. Also, the NIHR can be reached via toll-free number at 80001144 anytime questions or awareness is sought from them. All right. Doctor, when we look at dealing with misleading information, which is something that is faced every single day, it is a must to tell us more about the NIHR's procedures to deal with this incorrect information about Bahrain's human rights situation, which is published by foreign media and sometimes social media.
Well, it's not only foreign media and social media. There are some NGOs that publish misleading information about the human rights situation in the Kingdom of Bahrain. However, I believe now that they're less credible as well, because having national mechanisms, not only the National Institution for Human Rights, there are 5 national mechanisms regarding human rights monitoring in the Kingdom of Bahrain. There's even a civil society, an active civil society in the Kingdom of Bahrain that monitors the human rights situation. I urge all stakeholders and all global NGOs and anyone, even any individual or human rights defender that has any issue regarding the human rights situation in the Kingdom of Bahrain to contact the National Institution for Human Rights directly. We are on the ground. We receive the complaints. We deal with the complaints effectively. We attend the court hearings. We attend the court procedures. We have even attended the military courts in the Kingdom of Bahrain in the case 1 Terrorism 2017. And we have issued a comprehensive report that's available on our website regarding allegations of torture and enforced disappearances. So we are on the ground. So we urge all parties, all stakeholders, anyone who has even an interest in the human rights situation in the Kingdom of Bahrain to contact us directly, and we will be more than happy and grateful even to provide him or her with all necessary information.
And that's basically how you deal with this misleading information phenomenon that's been going on.
Well, yeah, that's indeed our communication strategy, that we provide everything transparently to anyone. Our annual reports are public. They have updated information about the human rights situation in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And indeed, I believe that the annual report of our institution, the National Institution for Human Rights, is a reference to the human rights situation in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Indeed, if there's any questions or inquiries, we'll be more than happy to answer. We take initiatives as well to follow up issues based on our monitoring mechanism, and that has been reflected recently not only in the military justice report, but in many other reports that are all public. We conduct unannounced visits to prisons. And that's one of the most effective mandates that we have in our institution. And we have conducted the unannounced visits. We will conduct in the foreseeable future. I'm not going to tell you when, because it's not going to be unannounced. But nonetheless, that indeed is a very transparent mandate that our institution has and continues to practice in that respect.
The National Institute for Human Rights has succeeded immensely over the years, and has improved and has changed, and progress is seen. How do you measure the success?
Well, it's very hard, for me to measure the success of our institution, but I believe that in the end of the day, when you help someone, out of the 484 at least in 2017, I believe that the measure of success is seeing a smile on someone by helping them through their grievances or through their legal assistance and so on and so forth. In the end of the day, I strongly believe that human rights is a lifestyle. It's not a day job. When we leave our offices, we're still human rights defenders. I believe as well that in this life you could either make a living or you make a difference. So those working in the human rights field need to keep in mind that they should be thinking of making a difference more than making a living. And that indeed is reflected nonetheless in the work of the National Institution, in the work of civil society organizations, and even in the work of other national human rights oversight bodies. Individuals as well could be human rights defenders. We have seen many cases in the Kingdom of Bahrain where individuals have done an outstanding job as human rights defenders. Because in the end of the day, it's important to note that a human rights defender cannot be selective. Because even in the introduction video, this program, we're all equal at the end of the day. So we can't have selective kind of activists based on sect or creed. So these are the issues that we are observing now, and we could confidently say that there has been improvement a lot in the perceptions of individuals. The awareness programs have been reflected in the practice of society as well.
Doctor, when we did a show a few weeks ago with about human trafficking, one thing that was mentioned during the show is that the stories of the victims are followed up even after they leave Bahrain and after they go and they try to integrate themselves back to life, to normal life. Human rights violations might be a simple word, but the effect, the psychological and physical effect it has on the human being who is the victim of this is immense. How do you deal, do you follow up with the witnesses and with the victims long-term after they are rescued or helped from that stance?
There is a follow-up mechanism. Well, for us, nonetheless, if the issue has been resolved regarding the human rights violation or the alleged human rights violation, indeed a follow-up is necessary. There is a monitoring mechanism within the National Institution for Human Rights, not only through the Secretariat but also through the relevant committee, and that indeed shows that the follow-up is necessary indeed for non-reoccurrence of the violation nonetheless.
Yes. Well, after years of dedicated efforts, how does the NIHR assess its success? We talked about that. But despite its role in the human rights field, the National Institute for Human Rights has several social and environmental goals in which it engages with local societies to achieve them. Now, these goals are important, especially with the 2030 vision coming up and everything. What can you tell us about them?
Indeed. Environmental goals have been a priority to the National Institution for Human Rights. We have launched in last May a Going Green campaign, and as a result we have recycled more than 95% of material that we had that we thought was not useful. We're not yet there, but we aim to be a paperless institution. So far we have well, I would say more than 80% of our work is paperless. Okay. Our meetings are paperless. That I could confirm. We have paperless meetings, and we look forward to be a paperless institution. Of course, we're doing that in order to be an example to other institutions as well.
Yes.
Especially in the public sector. So that's one of the issues that we have prioritized in the National Institution for Human Rights. And it is one of the themes of business and human rights as well, where going green nonetheless is necessary, because even our Mother Earth has a right. Yes. At the end of the day. And that is a right that we try to preserve. And it is, of course, one of the new generation rights that is prioritized by our institution, both in policy and in practice. Yes. We're looking forward to transform our library from a traditional library to an e-library. Our publications are all electronic from last year. Yes. We had this policy to have electronic publications where everything is available on the website instead of wide distribution of papers. Perfect. We also, we're working on a mechanism or a scheme actually to use recycled paper in our correspondences. Okay, that's perfect. What are the future plans and the upcoming projects that the NIHR has? Well, recently we've announced that we have, it's kind of a progressive idea nonetheless, to have a fellowship program, a human rights fellowship program. Our strategy nonetheless is based on not only in providing the knowledge or the research on the national level. Instead, we want to have an outreach to the regional level because human rights nonetheless in the cultural context and the regional context requires regional thinkers nonetheless and researchers that contribute in providing a mature assessment of the human rights situation. Yes. So as a result, we're going to launch in the final quarter of this year a fellowship program, a human rights research fellowship program, in order to contribute to the literature of international human rights regarding different aspects. There has been a focus. We had a few researchers. We had some Bahraini students and non-Bahraini students as well who have been studying abroad. Yes. To do their internship in Bahrain. So we thought about it. You know, this is not really an internship as much as it's a fellowship. Yes. Because they provide genuine research, mature research actually, on human rights situations. There's a lot to do, and that's why the idea came to provide such a research fellowship in our institution. Yes. It will be free. it will be up to 12 weeks, and each fellow will be provided with desk space and all material necessary, in addition to assistance by our human rights experts.
That's a massive step. Dr. Khalifa, we've reached the end of our program. Is there anything that you would like to add as we conclude?
Well, if you allow me,
yes,
I would like to well, tell all the audience, or urge all of the audience, if you have any human rights grievances, if you have any human rights inquiry, if you believe that you are subject to a human rights violation, please call the toll-free hotline. That is toll-free and available for each and every individual in the Kingdom of Bahrain. You do not have to be a citizen. We welcome expats as well to provide their grievances through this number. There's a phone app as well, an AHRBH.
Yes.
You could come through walk-in either to our main office in Sif or to our branch in Sihle, and we will do our best to solve the issue.
Yes.
I also urge all stakeholders inside and outside Bahrain who have any inquiry about the human rights situation in the Kingdom of Bahrain to contact the National Institution for Human Rights. We will provide you with all information necessary about the human rights situation in the Kingdom of Bahrain. We are in the field. We attend the court hearings. We go to prisons, and we can verify any claims that any individual or organization sees appropriate.
Perfect. Again, that toll-free number is 80001144. Also, the website and the phone applications are available. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalifa Al-Fadl, for being with us today. And we would also like to thank you for watching, and see you next week in another episode of Inside Edition.